Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of VCT Pacific Scoped In. My name is William Cho. I'm one of the casters and analysts on VCT Pacific, and we just wrapped up our very first season of VCT Pacific, crowning our very first champion, Paper Rex. They finally are able to beat DRX 2 times in a row, in fact, starting with the upper bracket finals, and also making the first ever VCT official reverse sweep in a 3-2 scoreline in that grand finals. But anyway, aside from that, we are still sending the top 3 teams to Masters Tokyo. So that's Paper Rex, DRX, and then T1. I wanted to take a look at each of these teams a little bit just to give a preview of what makes them so formidable, and maybe sometimes some of their weaknesses as well that we hope to see improved once they hit the stage over at Tokyo. Today, we'll start with T1. They are our third place team. However, quite frankly, taking a look at their style and their potential, this might be the team that I'm kind of most interested in to see how far they progress, right? I mean, Paper Rex, yes, W Gaming, super exciting, and the new version with something, absolutely. DRX, maybe we're waiting to see them kind of evolve into the next form, but T1, they just seem to be on the up and up. And one of the biggest reasons I'm so interested in them is because they're continuing to show a greater understanding of macro play, but the individual mechanics and kind of this, what I would like to call winning mentality, championship mentality material is there. It's very apparent. And this team clearly has the potential to lift the trophy at some point here in VCT. So let's dive right in. We're going to begin with Haven. Now, we are going to jump around a little bit in terms of map order, so bear with me, but we're basically just taking a look at some cherry-picked rounds to showcase what I think are some strong points from T1. We'll start with the bigger picture, and this is one of the rounds which I think is actually so crucial to Haven specifically, and shows me, at the very least, that T1 has a pretty good understanding of how to play macro Valorant, right? Haven, we all know, is famous for having 3 sites, and that creates some difficulties on the defense. Now let's take a look at what T1 has in store. We are looking at round 8. T1 is on the defensive side. We already see that there is Killjoy set up kind of across A, really, kind of set up just to buy time, right? Alarm bot in sewers, turret watching for the entry, both from main and potentially A short as well. We also see that there is an operator in Saya's hands. He is sitting at C. He is looking down long, but he's going to be pushing out here in a second. Now, the timing that he pushes out is very important because we're already about 15 seconds through the round, and during these first 15 seconds, we see that Ban has already put up a smoke on Garage. Now, this is intended to try to hold them off, but of course, he's still watching just in case anyone comes into window. Meanwhile, the drone has just been launched by Zeta, and it's pushing out mid. Now, Zeta tends to actually use his drones quite early, but that's okay because they move off of it one way or another. Let's start to play it out and see what the movement looks like. So the drone goes out, gets contact with Buzz over by Garage, sees a turret as well. With that information, and with Ban checking that no one is pushing in through Garage, we see that Saya has now pushed out of C main. All right, as he inches forward, basically what this does is this kind of cuts out this entire part of the map, right? So now this whole area is erased for T1. They can basically assume that this right side of the map is Haven from now on out. Now, during this whole time, as soon as they get that contact and they see that there's no initial rush over from A short, we see these two, and they're holding the same setup. Carpe's been standing here looking at this angle with arms out, ready to go. One of the reasons they can do this reliably, again, is because they pushed out of B. There's no rush into B. They already got contact with one member that they realize has backed off, and the operator's pushing out of C main as well. So heavy chance that it's going to be a hit. DRX, unbeknownst to them, they just kind of check the close corners. They want to make sure no one's hiding out near lobby. They clear that, they move forward. By this time, Saya has already pushed out. Now, we just missed it. Let's rewind there. Now we see that there was a recon bolt used as well that goes out in front of Garage, and it's going to get contact on RB. RB erases it immediately, but the thing is if you're able to erase that, you're not right in front of the entrance to B, right? There's still someone hanging around here, but it doesn't look like they're getting ready to rush into garage. You're already watching main anyway. So again, this line still holds true. Now, on top of that, the Rolling Thunder prepared. Saya's watching C. Band's still watching window. And with this information, Zeta starts to rotate out. All right, he's going to start to slowly inch out. They haven't gotten contact on A main yet, but he's just making that because they're going to smoke B main, right? So Zeta says, okay, now you're watching window. Let's smoke out. I don't know if he actually said it, but, you know, the smoke comes out on B. That way, it's just going to kind of delay any potential push. If it is a rush, Band will hear it. And Zeta decides he's going to start rotating back to A where it's most likely. Now, Munchkin is set up, if we look at the screen here, where he barely will just not get hit by the beginning part of Rolling Thunder. So the intent here is Rolling Thunder and Munchkin peeks out. But instead of waiting for turret contact, which it technically should get contact a bit earlier than Munchkin, what they're actually going to do is they're going to hear the utilities, the smoke and the recon bolt flying into the site on A, and T1 just jumps on the opportunity. But there's a special part to this, all right? The Rolling Thunder is great, by the way. The Rolling Thunder goes out. Just want to mention Buzz dashing forward behind Munchkin. Best effort he could have made. Potentially could have gotten the kill with a shorty. But either way, Munchkin goes out, and look at the kill feed. It's Zeta with double kill. And we see where he is, right? The pings are coming out, and we see the beam here on the screen as well. And he gets a double as well. So mid-rotate, he sees that they're in position, and there's kind of several layers to this. One is I mean, I don't want to keep drawing that comparison, but I think it does help that this team understands the value of utility to secure rounds, right? And maybe part of that just, maybe part of it is a lot of them coming from Overwatch and just really being comfortable with jumping and making that instant decision. But this also goes to show, obviously, their comms and the way they have their lineups ready and the way that they, tie in their utility together. But also, they're dumping 2 ults just to secure the round. It's easy to make that analysis this time because they're down 1-6. But we'll take a look later on that T1 actually does this a lot of times, even if they're in the lead, even if the round looks like it's a given, they will commit to secure the round. So basically, they play round win by round win. And, I mean, after this, it's history, right? I mean, RB's kind of stuck on his own. Sure, he kind of got a lurk in, and he gets 1 kill, but therefore they know where he's at, and T1 is able to steal away this round. So, just took a look at one of the macro plays. I know that's one singular play, but again, it does seem to happen quite often for T1, so that's something you can keep an eye on as you continue to watch their matches. Next up, I want to talk about Saya player as a duelist and an entry. We all know Saya's cracked, right? We all know Saya's a crazy good player. He puts up insane stats even when they're losing, quite to the point where I do agree and feel that maybe we did not give him the highlight and attention he deserved for the whole season overall. I mean, I think we did focus in on him during the playoffs a decent amount on the desk and the cast, but he is just an insane force to be reckoned. But on top of that, while yes, he will put up crazy highlights and he is very good at having these heroics to bring home the rounds, he's also really, I don't want to say learned, because that makes it sound like he's never known how to do that, but he's gotten comfortable with trusting his teammates, right? And really playing the role as an entry. Not an entry fragger per se, but an entry, right? So basically creating space, creating time. Again, just playing for the overall round win. So we'll take a look at 2 situations for this. The first one, he is actually going to get a kill on, and it is a lot of credit to his mechanics, but the point remains the same. So the first one, they're down 50 seconds, and we see that we have Blade Storm activated, Stinger on Zeta, so the op was given over to Munchkin. Now I remember, yeah. The op was given over to Munchkin because Saya's going to entry with the Blade Storm. And clearly, we can see on the map that they have decided to go B. They haven't gone B much. during this map, right? So this is, I think, one of the first times, actually, that they will eventually at B. But look at Saya's movement as we go into the site. Let's watch this in slow motion just to break down why this is so important. Okay, so Bolt goes in the back. We do see that Stax is ready, and he takes it out, right? Meanwhile, the first smoke comes out over to see Link, and Band should be setting up the second one as well. But instead of waiting for those and giving the entire kind of scenario away, etc., they want to strike a bit faster. And so the Cloudburst hides Saya's entry, and then if you look at his movement, he'll first jump out of his own Cloudburst, right? Because he has Blade Storm, so he can still get the kills, but this makes it harder for him to get picked off right away as he's entering the site. So it buys him a little bit of time. It keeps him safe from the potential peek in from a Link, and thankfully to him, he gets the kill, but then he immediately dashes forward, and he checks right as he does so before the smoke comes in. So now he's checked to make sure that no one is in the close vicinity. He has dashed backwards to take over back site, and then he starts to peek as the fault line comes out on the left side. So he actually didn't get full vision of the left side, but since that's the only area that he wasn't able to really clear and check, they fault line that, and then the rest of his teammates are able to creep in through the Cloudburst at multiple angles, right? The right side is safe because Saya just cleared all of it, so Carpe can go in pretty safely from there. And then in the meantime, because you're trusting in the fault line, Zeta's just going to come out and peek out. And then Zeta will get the kill. Carpe's making sure he can continue to hold in case anyone comes in from a Link. And then Saya, we see he dashed forward to pick up the rifle, and then he's going to spray down C-Link as well. Yes, he got the kill, but again, the focus is much more on breaking open sight, creating space. And there's actually a better example of this. So, jumping forward over to round 23, T1, bringing it close. They will be going over to C site. Now, by all intentions, we can see barely a second has passed, and they are ready to just go into C, right? They're going to clear Cubby with the shock darts. I mean, all sorts of things are going to fly in, and then they're going to plant Saya in. Now, one of the things we like to talk about on the cast and any breakdowns is backside is mega important on C site. If you cannot get it, the retake becomes so much easier, because basically then, even if you get the plant, you are forced to have to plant for long and basically go all the way back out. You cannot hold the site if you do not hold back sight. Now, what we're going to see here is Saya is not going to be able to just go in and get kills, okay? So then he makes a very conscious decision to, again, create space and time. So they clear the nanoswarms, the recon bolt goes in. Now, something to note is the recon bolt, I don't believe, tags Mako at all. He's able to keep kind of swinging back and forth behind the boxes, and then Saya's Cloudburst as well to hide from it. Same with RB. He's able to keep swinging in back and forth from the smokes. So Saya goes in, recon comes out, and he peeks out just to see if anyone's trying to run out of the site away from the recon. But as soon as that happens, he decides to continue to hide by using both Cloudburst, right? Because they're not feeling entirely confident about the safety of the site. And if because they weren't able to, because their recon bolt is not one that clears the entirety of back site, aka right under the Cloudburst, if he were to jump down early just to go for a 1v1 challenge, there would be no one to trade him. So he waits with both Cloudbursts while this minimap, because of the timing I paused it in, is in a terrible state. But basically, it buys time for everyone else to flood the site, so even if he does die, as he does, they now have the numbers advantage, absolutely. Let's rewatch that now with the minimap a bit clearer. Alright, so smoke on garage, and then the paranoias go on both sides. So because the enemy paranoia comes out as well, Saya knows that he needs to buy more time for his teammates to flood in, so they wait. His teammates come in at double angles. He then jumps down to get info. Even though he doesn't win, he gains info. He knows that no one else has been coming in from Link, so they're able to fill out backside. And then they eventually take control of the site. Again, just the ability for him to kind of switch it on when he needs to for heroics. But understand that his job is to allow the team to come into the site, whether it is through kills or not. I think is a very good sign for Saya to be the star entry player for T1, or continue to be, rather. So we took a look at T1 having a good understanding of macro play and, kind of knowing how to use their ultimates in util. We talked about Saya being a good entry. We're really starting to put together the pieces of a very good team in Valorant. And now we're going to talk about one of the patterns that I noticed with T1, which is Munchkin's lurking. And I would like to think about lurking being so crucial to a lot of championship teams, right? We take a look at, if we were to take a look at, for instance, the old Optic, right? Marv had some crazy lurks. Even Paper Rex, when they were making their Copenhagen run, a lot of Mind Freak's play were his lurks and the timings he got. Same thing with old Gambit, right? Nats. That was what he was known for. And even current teams, right? I would say even the likes of Loud and Fnatic and all these teams, again, not to say that that's the only thing you do, not to say that that's all you rely on to win, but a good lurk. And when we say good lurk, we don't just mean staying alive and getting picks, right? We mean the timing and the space you get, the control you get of the map, the info you're gathering, all of that, and just the timing you have, because in a pro match of Valorant, you cannot rely on someone always telling you this is the time to rotate, right? Just based on other people's comms and the kill feed and the minimap, you have to have the kind of awareness to know, when do I creep up, when do I rotate, when do I come flank. So we're going to take a look at two examples of T1 utilizing this and understanding the value of a good lurk. First up, we are looking at round, 19? I think I have 18 written down on my notes. No, I said 19. Okay, good. I'm not losing it. Round 19 on Ascent, the very first map. And this one, it goes to show that T1 is prepared to use Munchkin to create variables, maybe even, worst case, a potential rotation. They actually commit to A site pretty early, but then Munchkin's timing and him just being focused in on what information he has so he knows when it's safe to move forward is very impressive. So we'll roll the tape. So initially, one-way smoke comes out from the defense, and once again, an early drone. I used to get really frustrated at teams that use drones really early, but the more I watch it, I think this is the way. I think this is the way. You just have to act correctly off of it. I'm not going to say it's like always objectively the best way to play, but again, an early drone from Zeta, and this makes sure that they can peek out and make sure that no one's peeking. They even force out the smoke because of the drone. They see that. Because of the smoke, the drone's going to continue to go in and try to check wine as well. It doesn't get full clearance, and T1 recognizes that, but they use the drone to continue to push forward. Now, at the very least, this creates pressure, right? This defense puts out another smoke. And Munchkin, meanwhile, he's had his turret, he's had his alarm bot, and he's just watching to see if anyone pushes out through Catwalk. I think one of the reasons they do this is because Saya loves pushing out of Catwalk to get the wraparound on A site pretty early in a lot of rounds on their defensive side. So they just want to make sure that no one does that. Also, is anyone watching the cross? Do they have our information? Things like that. So Munchkin's just playing this safe. I think he might actually be waiting for turret contact as well here, or maybe jiggle peeking. But either way, T1, they now clear wine. All right, it's 1:10. They say, okay, wine is clear. No one is here. We even plant down ban just in case, and the spike moves back across to safety. They draw out the fragment as well. Now, during this time, Munchkin was, that's now way too big. But anyway, he was looking to go mid, and the recon bolt flies out. So he hides behind it, right? He doesn't break it, so that tells me he wasn't pinged. So he wanted to move up right after they checked wine, so that he could get space, maybe create a little bit more of a diversion by breaking the alarm bot, etc. But the recon bolt comes out, so he hides from it. They still have a lot of time, minute on the clock, and then he starts to creep forward. He still has his eyes on sewers, and he says, okay, or sorry, not sewers, but a short on tree. He says that's clear, and then he moves in. The 0 point comes out and the smoke comes out. Now, Munchkin already basically has control of mid, right? So anyone trying to rotate over, he's gonna know he should get the kill. It's just something I want to point out. This is a little bit of props to DRX and Buzz, as I often talk about how Buzz is that guy actually who has that winning mentality, who is able to create that X factor on DRX. And the reason I see that is actually shown in this round, because he gets 0-pointed and smoked off, and he literally just walks into sight with an operator to create another angle, and that actually helps slow things down against T1. So we'll see that here. Saya player, again, he's just trying to survive in the cloudburst, but he has no idea that Buzz is right behind him. Buzz gets the kill. He picks up the Vandal. Now, because of that, initially, Munchkin, he was thinking about this, but they decide to strike hard and fast onto A, so he doesn't bother bringing the alarm bot, and he's rotated over to Tree, and especially he starts moving much quicker because they could not actually get in. They only have 35 seconds on the clock, and Munchkin, if he just gets caught out in mid, he understands, okay, well, then we can't go to either site, so he's come for backup. But he slowly first tries to peek, you know, if anyone's checking out from window, and then he just holds these angles where he's not going to get caught in these weird crossfires. So he just waits on the smoke. He knows that Buzz is in there, so he's watching that way, and he hears the window break, so he's like, okay, someone's on Tree. I'm going to wait for this one. Zest is trying to wait for as long as possible, and look at what happens. During this, because they don't have information of anyone coming out from B main anymore, Zeta had just gone around, checked the flank, nobody's there, and then chaos ensues to not only clear out Buzz and check if he's still there, but actually open up the way for Munchkin. The Hunter's Fury comes out. It eventually gets actually stacks in the back. Buzz dodges the first shot, but with that noise, Munchkin starts to run upwards. And then he hears Zest coming around the corner, gets the kill on Heaven. Buzz survives all of that, but Munchkin, now with 10 seconds on the clock, he jumps down right as Carpe comes in, and they are able to eventually get the plant, and Munchkin gets the kill as well. So just Munchkin having this understanding of, like, this is what I want to push up. This is what my role is now. Is it just to hold in the mid? Is it just to hold against rotations? Or do I now have to be the one who opens up the side? All in all, very good. We're going to take another look at a round where Munchkin goes for a very nice lurk. Now, the last couple clips we're going to look at are really going to highlight what I like to call the winning mentality that T1 has, or potential championship mentality, right? Again, always playing to absolutely win rather than playing not to lose. And there's a couple different examples of this, but I just kind of picked out the ones I thought were most impactful and kind of showcased my point right away. The first one, those of you who watched will remember, but this is on round 20, and it basically boils down to a 2v2. Excuse me, it is currently a 3v3. It boils down to a 2v2, and T1 has to be the one to plant the spike. Let's play out the clip. Mako is on site. He's just trying to hold. He actually gets the first kill, and the spike is dropped. At this point, T1 does not know where the reinforcements could quite be. And so you see them just watching for maybe a peek out, right? Trying to swing out as you try to retrieve the spike. No one is there. They put Saya in position over on A main. I don't have my pen ready to go, so let's get that up. We see that Saya was basically watching Heaven the entire time. He's backed up. Ooh, I actually kind of like this new color. Huh. Meanwhile, Zeta's constantly watching for that as well. He has to, he actually went back to close the door as well. Right, so he closes, or he checks Tree rather. And then he's going to try to get in position to plant the spike. He's hiding behind Jen. But we're going to see the recon bolt come out. So Zeta eliminates that. Saya was not spotted by it, and Saya's still holding the first angle to see if a peek comes out. Now, watch. There are a couple choices here, right? You can try to really run down the clock, see if they peek at all. You don't have any other utility, so there's not much else you can do there. Zeta could try to just plant it safe behind the Gen, and Saya watches for him. But T1 makes this decision that this is a 2v2. So if Zeta sticks the plant, it would be a 1v2. And while Saya is an amazing player, they don't do that. They try to spam the wall. They're trying to just bait out these potential swing outs. And Saya sees that one swings out, and he sees the second. So he knows that it's a wide swing, right? And Zeta was about to literally start planting when Saya sees them both. And Zeta lets go of the plant and literally runs into the fragment. it is ridiculous to me what a good decision this is. Because here's the thing. Yes, he dies, but... So he spams that. We see that the fragment's being thrown. We see that, but... And then literally he's about to start planning. Saya has just spotted the peak. And then Zeta calls it that he's... Or I don't know if he really called it, but he swings back out to challenge one to make it a 2v2. And then Saya re-peaks off of that right away. Right? So no one's left out to dry. But the reason this is so good is well, Zeta gets the kill, right? So that's amazing. But even if Zeta dies, right? So even there is a world where Zeta gets hit in the chest right away and he dies to the fragment. But even at that point, he has, because Saya peeked back out, he like left the peak, right? He went right behind the wall again. Their crosshairs would have to focus back in on Zeta. So when Saya re-peaks, he would have the advantage, right? And you would get reconfirmation on their exact location. So again, you're creating the best way to win the round. There is a world where Zeta gets tanned on the chest and dies immediately to the fragment, and Saya can't get both kills, and then everyone would be saying, wow, I can't believe Zeta like walks right into the fragment. Why would he do that? Sure, yes, that can happen in hindsight, but I absolutely think this was the way to win the round, right? Instead of leaving it out to a potential 1v2 and then another 1v2 or 1v1, you try to continue to make it a 2v2. Now let's take another look at T1 playing to win. All right, we're going to play out the clip a little bit. This is on bind. I told you we're hopping back and forth, but we're on round 11. Somehow Munchkin gets that kill with so little health, and he gets out, and Saya gets a kill over on B as well. Earlier, Mako tried to lurk deep into A site. He was taken out. T1 has absolute control of this round, okay? It is a 4v2. Granted, Munchkin is kind of low. They can group up in B main. They can survive there for as long as possible. They could leave and flank back up to window. They've got two guys. They can go for a 4v2 retake from two sides. Worst case, you could even take the teleporter and then come back for another pinch, although that would take a little bit of time. But anyway, like T1 has all the reason to win this round. All right, you hear the blast pack, nothing happens. And then after you hear the blast pack, Munchkin's holding here. They don't have an entire idea of who else is still, where the last remaining member, RB, could be because they only saw Buzz. And Saya just activates Showstopper. Okay? One of the only things that you would logically explain right off the bat is because it's round 11. Okay? So, the half ends in 2 rounds. So... okay, sure, maybe he just used it. But the other thing is it's 4v2, and you could have technically used this to really secure the next one and make it an 8-4. But he just pops it right away. Munchkin being low, they don't have exact information of B main, so he pops it right away to hinder anybody, sees that there's no one there, and he blast packs in, and because of the showstopper noise, DRX couldn't just keep flooding in and chasing Munchkin. So Saya gets this kill onto Buzz, and then RB can't get into the site. But this is what I mean, is that especially something like the Showstopper. I mean, for instance, if he was the Harbor and he just suddenly used like Reckoning there, I'd be like, okay, well that, I don't know about that. But understanding that the value of a Showstopper is getting kills and basically putting fear and delaying time, right? So if this will guarantee us this round, we can always reset and try to go for the next round. This one ult isn't going to be the thing that makes or breaks next round, whereas it absolutely does make or break this round. Because if I didn't use it, maybe Munchkin gets peaked right away, and then it's a 2v1 and he loses, or he gets traded and then it's 1v2. Like, you just don't want to leave that up to chance. So using that Showstopper right away instead of holding on to it and potentially regretting it, again, chances of that were low, but eliminating that just to stay ahead and make sure that they get, 7 on the board, I think is a good choice. And we see this a lot, right? Zeta, he fearlessly uses Hunter's Fury all the time, even if the opponents have a lockdown ready to go. They are doing things just to create space, to create kills, to make sure they win the round and keep snowballing even harder. So, we just talked a bunch about the great parts about T1, and while we're talking about winning mentality and creating X factors and creating variables, I do want to point out that it doesn't always work out, and that's where, of course, the mechanics and foundation would come in, right, to make it even more consistent. Now, I just want to put a disclaimer. This one does focus on Saya player. By no means is this meant to say that Saya is the only one making these mistakes. This is just kind of the nature of how T1 will sometimes play, and sometimes it doesn't quite work out. And a lot of those times, it's going to be hindsight that kicks in. So just keep that in mind. But again, I think it still goes to show the logic of T1 in them understanding that they want to play to win. They want to play to be the ones creating the variable. They want to be the variable. But sometimes, again, there is a risk-reward balance here, and it does need to be weighed. This is just to kind of prove that it's not a objectively only way to play Valorant, right? So we are now on Fracture, which I don't believe we've taken a look at so far in this clip or in this video, but we are looking at the last round of the half. T1 is defending, and we already see, basically, we see that T1 was ready for this potential lockdown. As it's already going off, we see that it's got 8 seconds left, and they are poised to push out of B main. They've already pushed out of A main for the pinch, and they have the breach to support as well from Canteen. So T1's quite well prepared for this, and it does become a little bit messy here. RB with a nice slide. He'll get taken out, though. Carpe just quick on that, and just trades back and forth, right? The lockdown eventually goes through, and it actually does detain 2 people. And those 2 are going to be the ones over by spawn. And this happens because they couldn't really push out because of the relay bolt, and they had to retreat. Now let's just pause for a second to talk about how the rest of this plays out. We're going to see that things are still smoked off for the attackers. Ban, since he's not detained, he just tries to whittle down the numbers just one bit. He doesn't get the first kill, and he will escape right away. Now he chooses to take the rope here, and I gotta imagine it's probably because he's at 8 HP, him just dry peeking again. There's not really a good timing for it because there's no one already on site trying to be able to pinch for him, right? So he's going to go take the rope. Now, Nightfall is used right away, and Saya player gets tagged by it right away, but Saya has already made up his decision that he's going to push out to then become the variable, right? Because right now, they just got chased off by the operator. Chances are DRX is going to come in to try to plan. He also hears the Nightfall, so he's trying to get this timing off of the Nightfall to peek out and get a kill. Unfortunately for him, DRX is already like way deep into the site. They see that someone's been tagged on Canteen, so they're watching for it, and he just dies right away. The logic is there, right? Ban didn't get the kill, but kind of forces him back into the site. You just got off your detain. You hear the Nightfall being used. You're going to catch them off guard by peeking out. Maybe even if you get traded, you now leave it down to a 2v1. You still have the advantage. Doesn't quite work out, but I think, again, I think these are the plays you need to lift a trophy, though, right? I think these are the types of plays you need. They're not always going to be the end-all be-all correct answer, and sometimes maybe, right, your mechanics aren't there that day. Maybe then you gotta kind of tone it down just a bit, but the mentality is there. It doesn't always work out. That's just the small point I'm trying to make here. Now we're nearing the end of this video, and we have to talk about Carpe. And I say this, and I realized actually I don't have any specific clips about Ban, which I think it does not do him justice because he played really well, and he really improved a lot. I think a lot of it just purely off of confidence. So Ban did play very well. He played his roles very well, both when he's playing Jet and the controllers. Again, this should not be taken in a way of like, well, there's nothing to highlight about Ban. No, there's tons to highlight about Ban, but it's also just kind of the position he plays. There is that one clip. I actually did have it saved as a draft where he wins the 1v2 against, I believe, Zest and Buzz on Haven on A site. So, again, Ban, clearly a great player as well. But I just want to talk about Carpe, and not just because it's Carpe, but I think this will go to show you why I think this team continues to have the potential. We just talked about it in this video. They've got macro play. They've got, good understanding of teamwork and entry. They have this winning mentality. They're playing to win. But on top of that, they just have really good individual mechanics as well, and the individual confidence. And one of the players that has that, I mean, in absolute loads of it, is Carpe. All right, so we're watching this round on bind, and if you look here, we're not going to change colors here, but they are on a bit of an eco here, a bit of a half buy. I think maybe, was this the bonus actually? No. So this, I think, was maybe saved over by Zeta, but either way, not a great round, right? They've already lost Saya player over in showers, and they're trying to rotate over to B, and it's not looking too good. The orb gets pinged immediately. Stax is trying to swing out. He gets the flash, and it's going to be Buzz who finishes that kill. They know that there's another, so they try to blast back, and they're going to try to swing out to secure this kill, right? Because they've basically given up the site. So DRX is making the correct decision here, and watch what happens. Let's watch it in slow-mo. Boom. Boom.
Kirby, what?
That's how I feel too. He just holds, and he gets 2 kills with the sheriff. I mean, absolutely bonkers play. And yeah, you know, the best teams in the world, they have these rounds that happen. But again, T1 has it as well. That's what I'm trying to show you guys. And we'll see the spike go off, and we'll see it in the replay. He just gets the first shot, and he just resets onto the second. But it's this type of mentality that I can still win, right? That I have a sheriff, that's all I need. And the best time we saw this was in this clip when he is on Ascent. I believe it was like a 1v3. He already got 1 kill, I believe. And then you actually heard it in the live replay, but it was very soft. So they edit up the audio here. This is the Korean cast, but just listen to what Carpe says.
야, 진짜 소름 돋는 에임이네요, 이거는.
와, 플래시 드라이브 반응까지.
뭘 넓어? 내가 이길게 이거.
우와,
내가 이길게 이거.
T1 카르페 품.
That's so sick. He just hides and reloads, says, you know, there's one left. He knows there's one left, and he says, I'll win this. And then he just gets the kill. And there's not much else to explain here other than individual mechanics and game sense, but the fact that he has this, he's playing to win, right? He's not like playing scared, like, oh my god, like I gotta win this, like what am I gonna do? This is, by the way, they lost the pistol, and they're trying, you know, they're on their eco, right? And he just says, I'll win. Like, you don't have, this isn't even a round you're supposed to win, so you didn't have to have that confidence. You could have, it wouldn't have mattered one way or the other. Like, in theory, you're supposed to lose this round, right? You already got more kills than you could have wanted, so you already did damage. Like, you could have just been satisfied, and you didn't. I'm not saying, like, you didn't need to try, but what I'm saying is you didn't need to have the confidence. How else do I put this, right? You didn't need to have this just outright Giga Chad mentality of, I will win this. But he does. And then he wins it. But while, yes, it's cool because it lined up, he said that, and he got the kill. And, you know, I'm sure some of you guys, when you 5-stick with your friends or such, you might say that you'll be like, I'll win this, or I win these. And then you don't, and you laugh about it. Sure, I'm sure that's happened to Carpe before as well. But at the same time, it's just that he's never going into the fight thinking like, well, I might lose this, right? He's going into the fight thinking, I just win this. Like, that's just how this ends. And I think having that confidence, T1 Zeta has talked about it before in a winner's interview, that's what they've been working on, is him telling his teammates, like,
저희 팀한테 좀 많이 드라이브 피킹이나 좀 건파이트 이기라고 많이 강요를 했었고,
because at the end of the day, it's an FPS. You need to have this practice of winning those duels, taking the duels and winning them to get used to that. And then when it comes in these rounds, that's when it makes a world of a difference. Whew, okay. So, took a look at kind of these bite-sized moments from T1. And, man, the more I look at it, the more I'm excited for T1. Again, these are all just very cherry-picked rounds. If you really look through their adjustment, their mid-rounding, their adjustment round to round, their adjustments after timeouts, their adjustment even from match to match. For instance, their bind in the lower bracket finals looked a lot stronger than it did during Super Week and the playoffs, right? They made these adjustments where they used to not attack shower as much. They were so just focused on the way they were executing on B. And then in the lower bracket finals, they always made sure that they put pressure on showers. It's things like this where it's so exciting to see a team continue to improve, and T1 is on that track. It's hard to say. They're in Group A at Masters Tokyo alongside EDG, NRG, and Navi. On paper, the harder group. So it's hard to say what the results will be at Tokyo. But while, yes, I do think it would be an upset if they got into playoffs over either NRG or Na'Vi, I also don't think it should be that shocking, right? I think they already look good, and if they're continuing to improve this much during Pacific, who knows how they'll look at Masters Tokyo. But at the end of the day, what I want to say is this is absolutely a team you should keep your eyes on, and I think they have all the ingredients of a winning team. They have all the ingredients of a trophy-lifting team, and I think there's potential that they can do it. Maybe this year, but definitely potential next year if they stick with the roster. So that's just the exciting part of T1, who is only third seed going from VCT Pacific. Next up, we'll be taking a look at the old Kings of Pacific, DRX, who finally get their big loss served in the grand final by Paper Rex, but obviously there's still a very sturdy core in that roster, and the addition of Foxy9, something to talk about. What roster will they bring out at Masters Tokyo? That's going to be next. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you liked it, please give us a like, maybe leave a comment as well. That helps a lot on these YouTube videos, and of course, subscribe to the channel. And I will see you in a couple days for the episode with DRX, who's going to Masters Tokyo. See you then.